Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Perception Paradox. My name is Jivela and I'm your host. And today we're continuing our adventures through entrepreneurship. And with today's guest, we speak about his founder journey while he was building a business. We often perceive the dream job as a seat at a global investment bank, maybe in a very well performing startup, or some kind of high level corp. So Glebs Kiselovs left JPMorgan to bet on himself in the Baltics, and he built Echo Group from a one man show to a powerhouse of 75 people, navigated a complex acquisition of a company older than he is, and recently completed a major exit to Nordomatic. Today we're talking about the discipline of the 5 a.m. club, the reality of bootstrapping, and why the hardest part of entrepreneurship is already behind you once you simply decide to start. So let's dive in, and I hope you enjoy. Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Jivila, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Perception Paradox. And Glebs, welcome. Finally, we made it.
Thank you. Thank you, Zivil. Nice to meet you and see you again.
Yeah, likewise. Good to see you again, Gleb. So I think what we can do, we can kick off straight with the question that we've just quickly touched base before pressing record. And I think it's a great conversation opener. So you've been on your entrepreneurial business journey for quite some time. However, you started your career in a role that's kind of considered to be the dream job for many in the financial industry. You've been at JP Morgan, and then at some point you decided that you're gonna leave it all behind, you're gonna quit the bank and do the bet on yourself and start building in Latvia. How did that happen, that someone's dream became your past and you pursued entrepreneurship?
I think you said very well. When I joined JP Morgan, I was the third year student, so it was part of my degree, and it was called paid placement. So you basically get a job, you have to work for a year, and you get paid, and then you get back to the university. And when I got the job, I was like, I'm gonna be a very rich investment banker because it's so well paid, significantly more than any other job available for students. And then you work there for a year. And for some people, that's a great career, I'm pretty sure. But for some, it has a lot of bureaucratic framework. And it's been 10 years since I worked there, so maybe some things have changed. But for me back then, it was quite slow, and I couldn't contribute. I was trying to contribute to more things than I physically could, and there were some restrictions of how much you can do, etc., etc. So I had two job offers at the end of the placement. One was in London, and another one was in Moscow, because back then JP Morgan still had an office, and I just felt that it's not for me, and I decided that I'm gonna go back to Latvia.
Okay, and then just to start your business?
I honestly, like I say to a lot of people, to a few people whom I mentor right now, if I try to rewind it in my memory back then when I made this decision and I started thinking what I'm going to do, I had a very, very little research. Like, I think it was like, I sit down, like the first idea comes to my mind and I'm like, okay, I'm all in. And then, 10 years you're building that, and there are moments when you realize, like, maybe it should have been a different idea. So, yeah, I don't know whether I should have spent more time researching or not, but I ended up where I ended up, and I'm super glad for that decision.
Well, you ended up with an exit, basically. So not a bad finish line for this one. But where did you get the courage to build things? Because entrepreneurship, it's a very risky path, and many people from the Baltics it's changing right now, but like 10 years ago, it would be very uncertain, unstable, not that much funding available. How did you get the courage to deal with this uncertainty and to build?
I think it's like each of us have our own level of stress resistance and same like level of courage. For me, it's just naturally. I'm kind of, I feel that this is just my balance. I don't know how it is, like whether it could be different, at least at this age. So I think it's just in my blood or whatever.
It can be. Perhaps some of us are breeded like a bit different way. So you were just this reckless, okay, well, let's just go for it. Let's try what the worst can happen. And you
You know,
decided to do, yeah, go ahead. You wanted to add something.
sorry. I think you just kind of, for me, and I think I think we had a conversation during Tech Shell as well with you. You just start doing, and then it a lot matters. When is this moment where you're gonna say quit because it's too stressful? And I think for me, it has always been like, okay, I'm gonna do more. And I get so excited by the process that when the stress comes, I'm like, okay, let's try this and then let's see what happens. And then there is always, okay, let's try this then. And it never ends.
Okay. Did you have many moments when you wanted to quit?
A lot.
How would you cope with them then?
The greatest was like one of the brightest, I think, in my memory was when we were closing one of our big first deals within for our industry, or for us back then, it was like in tens of thousands, I think, of euros. And my father, he was an entrepreneur back in his old days. I closed this deal. I come to him and I say, look, I'm so proud that I did this. And he listens to me. And then with an absolutely blank face, he says, well done, but you're probably not going to make a million here, right? And I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's not an encouragement. He didn't mean anything bad, but it was just an honest opinion that he had. Just like, you get through that. Next day comes, you just keep doing it. And you believe in yourself more than you believe in the opinion of others. If you believe, you should keep doing, I think.
How do you think we can build that in our confidence? Like, especially nowadays with so much comparative examples and people building things in public, the self-esteem can go really downhill. How did you what helped you to have your self-confidence strong?
I think I will reverse the question to you about building in public. So, like, what do you mean by building in public?
By what I mean by building in public is we hear lots of success stories and people doing things and succeeding. So maybe that was what I was referring to. And lots of publicity of those different starting points and different results that actually affects our mode. We start comparing ourselves to others, and that can result into lower self-esteem because we see those perfect examples and perfect stories.
I get it now. Thanks. I don't think I have an answer that would help 100% of people. To me, first thing is like you should never not be yourself when you're trying to build something. I'll explain. I had a moment when I got so hooked up by social media. It was back in 2018, I think. And I started posting on, back then it was Instagram, almost every single day about my entrepreneurial journey. But it was like, as you're saying, it was like a lot of positive energy. Like I'm building this and I'm like so much success. I've had a meeting. And then at some point we had a partner whom we started working with. And he called me and said, like, look, I understand, but from your Instagram, I think you're spending more time on your Instagram than you're spending on working with your customers. And I'm like, fuck, I wasn't expecting that. And it made me rethink what I'm writing about and whether it's actually honest or it's just for the sake of giving everyone else an impression that I'm doing good. And then for a very long, for like 3-4 years, I stopped writing anything, because I was just like, I'm not doing that because I have nothing to tell. So I think it's about finding the balance. Like, what do you really want to tell? Like, it should always be the truth. And it's okay to have moments of downside. And I think the more people build in public and write, not just about the moments of upside, but also about the moments of downside, the easier it's going to be for the general public and for the entrepreneurs to understand that it's not always up. It's up and down, up and down.
Well, if it's transparent in a way. But what I was still referring to, like the starting point is becoming so difficult nowadays because we see lots of great success stories and conversations happening around us that end goal, it becomes even further, which kind of causing for younger generations anxiety to actually kick off the things. So it's one thing, I guess, like building in public, but another thing comparing yourself to someone else around you and their success stories and having that courage to actually try things and build up that inner confidence. That's where I was curious to see if you have ever compared yourself with some other either entrepreneurs or successful people, or you simply had your goal and you were strictly working towards it without having that influence around you, knowing that it's not possible.
I think that's a very good point that you're mentioning. And I think we all compare ourselves one or another way. We listen to those, huge success stories. And because they are so close right now, it's much harder to hear the stories of the local people around you. If someone builds I don't know, a 10 million US dollar revenue business these days, it's treated like nothing, right?
Same like
10
running
years.
5K.
Exactly. 10 years ago, it would have been like 10 million. That's great. Now it's like, what is 10 million? Like nothing. So I think you're right. It's much harder, but I think I've heard I've been speaking recently to the person who is one of the wealthiest people in Sweden, and he's like he had his career. He's in his 60s right now. I hope I'm not mistaken. But and he said one great thing that he made his fortune on running different businesses, but every single time, regardless of what stage he was at, every single time he felt like he's losing, like he's behind everyone else. And that feeling actually kept him going and kept him building better things that most of the peers he was working with. So I think that feeling should never, leave us completely. We should always feel that we are behind someone, but it's how you overcome this feeling and how you keep doing and working to the best of your abilities what matters most.
I love what you're saying, that how you actually manage to work with your abilities and also perhaps control your emotions and response to the environments. Talking about response to the environment, there are different ways of building business. You started self-funding or bootstrapping your company. What made you to go this more regular business way rather than
I
fundraising and going VC way?
It was 2016. I was working in a bank, so I had some savings. And because my father was an entrepreneur, I never saw business as something where you could raise money and then you could build using someone else's money. Also, like I have to prove myself that customers can pay for that, and the profit I can get, I can then reinvest. So for the first 5 years, that was my only way. And I think whether I would do it differently now, that's a different story. But back then, it was possible.
Would you do it differently now in the different market environment?
It depends on what you build. I still think entrepreneurs who are capable of building the business just bootstrapping, like have a lot of things that maybe some other entrepreneurs who just go for raising money don't. But I think you know it better than I. A lot of it comes down to the scale that you want to achieve. And if someone told me that I could start a business and then bootstrap it to like 5 million in ARR in 2 years, or I could raise money and bootstrap it to 100 million in ARR in 5 years, I would go for the second option. So it depends on the cost of opportunity, cost of
Fair
alternative.
enough. So, Glebs, you grew your company, Aqua Group, from a one-man show to over 75 employees, if I'm correct, or even a bit more.
We have, if we look at the group of companies at the time when we got acquired, we were about 75, 80.
Okay. So, what was the hardest part of growing your team? Have you ever reached that hiring ceiling, or what were the challenges when you were like expanding it?
There was 1 year when we scaled from 7 people to about 40 people in a year.
That's a lot.
Yeah, for a small company like ours, it was a lot. So that was a challenging moment, especially because our business was a lot like service, so like delivery side was a big thing. So not all of those 40 employees, 35 employees were office people. So you couldn't see them daily. So you had a touch point through the manager who was dealing with those people. So that was hard. But I think the most interesting thing was when we acquired a company back in the year of 2020. And we acquired a company that was established in the 1991st. I am born in the 1994th. And I remember when we closed the acquisition, I met with the whole team and I met with our chief accountant. And then she said that she started working in the company in the 1991st. And I'm like, might have a challenge integrating the company, but um, again, to just speak to people naturally and then go for it.
Okay, that's exciting. So, what was your action plan when you acquired the company? How are you going to integrate that into coherent ecosystem of your empire?
For the first 3 months, I wanted to get to know people. And now it feels kind of a bit strange because we didn't have ChatGPT in use in 2020 seconds. I think now if I acquire a company, like if I did it the first time, the thing I would do, I would like write to ChatGPT or Claude and ask for the plan. Back then it was like, okay, what do we do? Did a little research and then decided that for the first 3 months, we'd see how they operate, participate in the key decisions and then observe. And then throughout those 3 months, I started to gradually take over the processes from the founder who sold the company to us. And then after 3 months, he was gone. So he could have stayed longer, but it was on purpose because I wanted to see how we perform without him being present at the office. And then you just start dealing with the things gradually, make some mistakes, you learn from them.
Very interesting. So I'm also curious to ask you, so your client is not really someone that's very eager for change. And if you look into the real estate developers, they're often can be a bit resistant to change if they're coming more from traditional backgrounds. And with Echo, you were not just gadgets, right? It's also building management. So how do you sell this high cost, high tech solution for someone who is more traditional? How did you manage to navigate this whole ecosystem and find your way in the market?
It's a very good question. I'm not sure whether this is applicable to all of the markets, but at least in our market, there is a life cycle. We call it the life cycle of the building. I created it myself and then the team developed it throughout the years from the very beginning. The building is in the middle, the constructed building is in the middle, but there is actually a pre-process of who works on it before it's being built, starting from the owner, architects, designers, and construction companies, etc. And then there is different value that each of those partners are looking for at every single stage when the building is being planned or built. So our approach was not to go with a price on the pure product that we sell when the building is built or has already been built, but we tried to go the whole value chain and give the knowledge, especially at the early stages. So we try to work with the architects, with the designers, with the developers at an early stage. And that allowed us to build relationships. And though it took us a couple of years since we started doing that until when we started to see it being capitalized in the signed deals, it actually played a very important role in the success of the company.
And well, every founder's dream or goal ultimately, usually, is an exit, either acquisition or some kind of successful financial results. You've got an exit in the late 2025. Congratulations on that. And it was a kind of a successful deal. So, and can you walk us through the journey towards the exit? Was it something you planned before and were aiming for, or that happened through the process and experience? And how did you end up where you are right now?
I think I didn't really plan it like from the very first moment. I just wanted to build a successful company when I started that. But then I had a very specific dream from the very first moment I started Echo, which was to become the number one building automation player in Europe by 2030. You scale it, you understand at a certain moment that you're in the Baltics, that the market is actually quite specific, so you can't scale as fast as pure software companies scale, so you have your own limitations. And at a certain moment, I realized that acquisition or merger could be an option of how we could join someone much bigger and be able to contribute to a global company. And yeah, we made a strategic decision in early 2025 that we would explore that, created a plan how to prepare for that, hired the M&A advisor to help us with the process. And then like after that, it just started and we found the right buyer who was happy to acquire us.
Wonderful. Congratulations. And what happens after acquisition? What's your role right now, and how did the ship happen?
So I think especially the M&A process to me is a roller coaster. You start, you feel excited when you sign the agreement with the advisor, then you start searching for the companies. You go downside and you find the right buyer, go upside, and you start negotiating and downside. So It's up. And I think in many instances, it doesn't stop and become a flat curve, flat line after the acquisition happens. So for us, we joined a huge company, like a very structured company at the end of the year. So it means that we hit the budget preparation period, we hit the yearly reporting period, audit, all at the same time. So like it feels like we never actually had a moment to celebrate properly because we just got so hooked into those daily operational processes. And then when you get acquired by the company like Nordomatic, you have a lot of things that you need to do in order to ensure that you integrate properly. And then we have so many exciting plans that, you also start working on them in parallel. So you just spread all over the place.
Wow. Well, I hope that you're going to find a moment to celebrate with the whole team. This moment. Summer is coming, and I know that the Baltics are delivering when it comes to the summer. I think it's going to be a very good one and hot one. Talking about entrepreneurship and founders' mindset. Well, building a company is not easy. It's uncertainty and the constant stress and the battle with the unknowns. What would be your non negotiable routines as a founder during those years that helped you to get where you are right now?
That's a very good question. I am addicted to planning. I have like people who know me, they know how I lead the calendar, and I'm like very strict that I need my week to be planned A to Z, including weekend. My wife knows that I'm going to put all of our activities in the calendar, so I know what we're doing, but I never ask a question. And that's one. So planning, especially things you do before work and after work, which kind of never really starts or never finishes. It's ongoing throughout your entire journey. Planning them is important. Second thing, I don't know if you've heard of the book called 5 a.m. Club by
Yeah,
Robin
I did.
Sharma.
Yeah,
Have you read it?
I did.
It's like amazing book. I love the concept. I follow it for 3 years now since I read it, and I love my mornings. That's the second thing that is non-negotiable. And then third is having sports, because I think especially active sports, your brains switch off, and regardless of the level of problem solving or stress you're going through, if you have a lot of sports in your life outside of normal working hours, then it just helps you to recharge.
Do you have your favorite sports activity?
These days, recently, it's been tennis and paddle, but in the Baltics, we like wakeboarding, golf. So there's a lot of things you could do.
Cycling as well nowadays, it's a thing. Okay, I love it. And so, okay, it seems like a very disciplined and strict routine you have, and everything is very scheduled in your calendar. Have you ever gotten anxiety of how full your calendar is, or have you learned how to navigate and include some kind of time for decompression?
I have, and I'm not really sure what so I've had it. I don't feel it right now. I don't think I felt it properly for some time period. But I like once in a while, I still go through this period of like, what am I doing? Is it the right thing? Or should I like reschedule my priorities? So it's just like, whatever I feel it, I just adapt it, sit down. And I like the concept of vacations where you spend 2-3 days outside of the office doing things without having meetings, etc. It really helps me to recharge.
So when the things go hard, but let's say right now you're confused and you're questioning, what am I doing with this whole current situation? What would be your first thing you would do?
Scream and cry.
Okay, that's
No,
good.
joking.
We have to release the emotions. That's good.
I agree. Maybe scream and cry as well. But I would at least plan half a day as soon as I can to go to the lovely town of Jurmala. I would work in a cafe and I would walk by the beach for like an hour and a half, and I would just think about all of the activities. If that's enough, I would just rearrange things. If that's not enough, I would plan a longer strategic vacation for a couple of days in the nearest week or so in order to rethink things properly. And then after that, in most occasions, I would meet with my team to discuss with them, what are the things that are bothering me, so we could discuss and rearrange the priorities, because it's in most cases, it's not just you who can solve that, a group of people to support you.
Okay, so reflection and then communication, basically.
Yep.
All right.
And screaming. Sometimes.
And screaming. I forgot that one. What would be your hardest moment in your journey with Echo Group while building the company? Do you recall it?
I don't really think that there was one that was super, super hard. For me, there was very important aspects, especially as an entrepreneur who was bootstrapping, to always pay salaries and to always pay tax on time. And it was a non-negotiable. And I'm proud that for the 10 years, we've never reached the moment where we couldn't pay it on time. But, as a small company, fully bootstrapped, having 30, 40, and 50, 60, 70 people, and constantly growing means you're always short on cash one way or another. Sometimes I don't know really how we managed to solve this and to not face the trouble of not paying on time. So that was hard, but it's part of life.
And as a founder, how did you navigate personal relationships, family, and work? And how are you navigating actually? Because that's usually we have now this big pressure in the ecosystem. We have team A and hustlers who are either putting aside the relationship or not really being present there. And then we have type perhaps B, I would say, that are more navigators and actually put aside time for the family and trying to combine both. What was your case?
That's a very hard question. This year is going to be, I think, 6 years since I've met my wife. And prior to that, it was already 4 years I've been in the business. I had previous relationships where I was working all the times, mornings, evenings, weekends. I had my laptop with me always. And then the relationships broke. And I knew I wasn't the one to blame for that, but at least I thought so. But I had to look also at myself. And I realized that probably the style, how I approached things wasn't the right one. So even though I can work in the mornings, I can work in the evenings, I never treat as, there's always work. And then sometimes with the work, there comes family. So now for me, there is work, there is family, there is work. So you have to separate those things. You can't mix them. And for me, that's how I managed to make my relationships work. At least I hope so. My wife, I think, will agree. I hope.
Okay, so we're getting closer to the end, and I think it's always interesting to see. So, what's next? How did the life change after your acquisition, and what kind of dreams do you have?
That's and I normally don't speak out, so loud about my dreams, and I don't know if it's right or wrong. I just meditate about that. I absolutely love the process that we're heading through right now with Nordomatic and the plans that we have. So my nearest goal is to build the success around Echo in the Baltics with Nordomatic, success of Nordomatic in the Baltic states and also Eastern Europe. And it comes with a lot of exciting additional opportunities that we could get. I want to become a much better leader myself and grow. And there are a lot of people from whom I learn on a daily basis at Nordomatic. I have my ambitions. I'm only 32 right now. Actually turned 32 yesterday. So a new
Hey, happy
chapter.
birthday! That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here we go.
And we'll see. But I know I want to be at a much bigger scale than I currently am, but life will show what's the right way of getting to that scale.
Amazing. And for anyone listening right now to us who is building and dreaming big, what would be your final thought to ponder after they heard your story?
Don't stop. You're not the only one who has problems. There are people who have much bigger problems than we have, especially if we look at the aspect of the whole life. The problems that some people have are much greater than the problems that entrepreneurs have. And if you have a problem, talk it through. Find a mentor, find a friend, reach out to people like us. Always glad to share an opinion and just keep doing that, because if you have had courage to start it, you clearly have a courage and energy to develop and grow it.
Beautiful. And I cannot leave this conversation without asking the final question, talking about mentorship and growth. How was it for you along your journey? Did you seek any mentors? Because you were more building the business focused way. So you were not that active front row startup event participant, to my knowledge. You were more like grinding hard and building the company. So did you have any mentors along the way who helped you to shape your path?
From the very first day. So the first thing I did, because I had zero knowledge about the market, the first thing I did was through a friend of mine who knew another friend of mine, another friend of his, I found a mentor who had previous experience. He had a business in this industry before, but he closed it a few years prior to me contacting him. So like he became my first mentor, and his name was Alex. He's a very good guy with a lot of business knowledge, and he was my first mentor for many years. He helped me with a lot of things, and then kind of you grow, and then you have other leaders who share with you an opinion. So for me, mentorship was super important. And I think without a mentor, I would have struggled a lot more. And if I would have listened to all the things that the mentor would have told me, I would have probably built a successful career earlier. But because I wasn't listening, I did my own way.
Well, sometimes we need to learn it by ourselves and making our own mistakes rather than listening and learning from others, perhaps.
Very right.
But you did it, and it's great to see you smile when you share your story and the very pragmatic and focused, disciplined approach with a healthy view into the harder moments when it comes to building, because it's part of the journey, part of the process. I like what you were saying, that if you already started, the hardest part is done. So now you just need to keep reminding yourself that you had the courage to start, or have the resilience and the push to continue and talk to people to get the learnings. All right, Glebs, final question. Right now, we're in the boom of AI. Lots of different things are happening in the industry. Is there anything you're kind of excited and follow when it comes to innovation and tech?
I'm super excited how fast things can change. I had a meeting 2 weeks ago where a person who is not a developer by the background built a thing throughout, I think, a month period outside of the working hours, a tool that the company like fully working, connected to all of the subsystems. And he presented it to the whole company. And like you look at that and you look at the senior software developers and architects who sit in that room, they understand. I had a very close person to me whom I know very well who said, like, with this speed, the value of the code that was written in the previous years is just like it's getting close to zero because of how fast you can develop things. So I'm super excited about how many good products will come in the next months, days, years, and we're just going to become much more efficient, I hope.
It's very exciting. So I'm also excited to follow your journey, how you to witness your leadership experience as well. And Glebs, thank you so much for finding time today to join the Perception Paradox podcast and sharing your journey. We believe in the show notes the links how people can connect with you and reach out maybe and learn more about the company you've built. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you everyone who joined us today. And Glebs, thank you very much.
Thank you, Zivine. I like what you're doing, and I'm really a big fan of, I told you before, I think sharing the stories and getting everyone to know that's a big thing. So thank you for inviting.
Thank you.